Hello everyone, Glenn Wittenberg here with My SIP Solutions. Feel free to check out my website at www.mysipsolutions.com. In this video I'm going to show what it took to get working a virtual Oracle / Acme SBC Session Border Controller version 7.2.9 up and running in my home lab. The reason I did this SBC deployment in the home lab is that I needed some experience with it. I went to Oracle training about 6 months ago in Massachusetts at the Oracle University, but I've yet to really get to work with one. As you know, these SBCs are really expensive, deployed in carriers and large MSOs, and nobody wants you banging around on them. Well, I'm the type of guy that likes to break things in lab, so I don't break things in production. This is how I learn. So with that being said, I decided to build my own so I could get some time on it. I'm going to cover hardware and software involved for doing this, as well as laying out the network so we know what IP addresses we can use when setting up the SBC. I will not cover, or if I do, it will be very limited, any of the software setups other than the SBC. I'll cover that in detail. So without further ado, let's get started. So my scenario for the lab, at least at this time, is to simulate a hosted PBX solution where I'll have phones on the access side of the SBC and a PBX on the core side of the SBC. This SBC is called the Access SBC. The documentation from Oracle on setting up their virtual SBC covers the requirements for deploying it, so I'm not going to cover that here in detail. The software I'm using at this time in the lab consists of 3 different pieces from VMware. They are the Vmware ESXi Server 5.5. This is, of course, needed to run my virtual guest images. They also need Vmware vSphere 5.5. I use this on my Windows 10 workstation to manage the ESXi server. It allows me to authenticate into a single server at a time and manage just that one server. I also need Vmware Vcenter. This is a requirement for deploying the Oracle virtual SBC. This is used to manage multiple ESXi servers under containers they call data centers. Even though I'm not really just needing to run and manage a single ESXi server but the Oracle SBC virtual OVA file needs this for deployment. It requires vCenter. It has to set up resource pools and probably a lot of other things I'm not aware of, but that's a requirement. The cool thing about the vCenter, though, is that I downloaded their virtual appliance and deployed the OVA on my ESXi server, so no extra hardware needed. It's virtualized. For my phones, I'm using a couple different soft phones, an X-Lite and a Swiper on my Windows 10 workstation. I'm also using a Yealink Desk SIP phone as well, but the soft phones are much easier to configure and start and stop to get them to re-register when you're troubleshooting. For my PBX / soft switch, I'm using a virtualized Asterisk box on CentOS 6.6, so again, no extra hardware needed there. This has a SIP trunk to Vitality for all my off-net calls. So again here, the SBC, it's an access SBC because it's on the private side of the network, right? So these are all, local IPs, private numbers. My phones will register down. They'll send the registration down to the access SBC on the access side of the access SBC. Then it sends them out on the core side of the access SBC to my Asterisk box. From there, if calls are internal, they just route back and forth, no big deal. If I got an off-net call, then my SIP trunk goes down to my provider that I'm using is Vitality. So that's, a real simplistic setup. But I have, Wireshark, and you can debug on the Access SBC and watch the true back-to-back and the topology hiding that happens as this interface speaks with the phone and forwards them off to this interface, and then that interface sends them off to the PBX. So it's pretty cool. My scenario after this will be to add another SBC, the Interconnect SBC, again with an access and a core side. The core side will be facing my PBX, and the access side will be facing my SIP trunk provider, but that's for another time. I'm not sure when I'm going to get to that, probably here another month or so. But real quick here, I'm just going to kind of turn some stuff on here for you so you can see that. There we go, and let me come up here and turn off Vitality and SIP trunk. So in the future, And this is more of a real-world setup that I have at the company that I work at, right? Only, the asterisk is not there. It's a, BroadSoft soft switch that's in there, and then we don't use Vitality, of course, or we're using, another provider, a level 3. So, again, the phones come down into the access. The access sends them out to the core, to the soft switch / PBX. Then it does the SIP trunk into the core side of the interconnect SBC. Then, of course, that access side of the interconnect will interface with your, provider CLEC out there as well. So, and again, that's true topology hiding from both the public side and the private side as well. So, keeping all your equipment safe and keeping, fraud down and all the other nasty stuff which goes on with SIP. So, when I come back, I'm going to cover a little bit of the network. We'll put some IPs on this thing and get ready to plan things out. Then I'll pull up the vSphere consoles and show you the ES6i, and also show you the little piece of the vCenter, and we can start doing some deployments. So I thought that before we got into actually, defining our interfaces on our SBC and IPing everything, that I would go over the hardware real quick on my lab that I have, so you can see what everything's kind of running on, and see the software and how they interconnect here. So first off, on the top left there, we have the ES6i server. That has specs. It's an i5-4690. I got 16 gigs of RAM in there. I use a 250 gig SSD for the ES6i operating system to go on there. I also use that as a storage pool, and it does hold my vCenter and my SBC. So I have 2 of my images on there on that SSD. I don't know if that's really recommended or not, but it's just my home lab, and I know what resources are being used on it, so I had no problem there. I also have 3 Western Digital 500 gig spindle hard drives in there as well. And for various things, I use, like, one of them I store all my ISOs on, and then the other 2 I use for some other, guest images on there, some Windows and some Oracle Linux and other things on there too that I'm just kind of playing around with. So, and I only have one network NIC in it. It's a Realtek card, so the operating system ES6i doesn't support that, so I just slipstream the driver in there, and then it installed no problem. So pretty happy with it. Getting performance and everything on the graphs and stuff, and it's it hums right along. But like I say, I'm not running a bunch of guest Windows images on it or anything else. I'm just running a couple mandatory things at a time that I have spun up. So no big deal there. I also put down here my NAS because simple reason that the ES6i server has the ability to do an NFS share along with iSCSI and stuff like that, but I don't have any of that in place. But I do have an NFS and Samba on Sense 7 on the NAS, and so I'm able to attach to that via NFS, and then I can use my ZFS pool. I think I misspelled mirrored there. Sorry about that. I can use my ZFS pool to store guest images on as well, or ISOs or whatever I need. So I got like 5 terabytes on mirrored stripes for a RAID 10 ZFS terms in use there too. But again, I've only got a like TrendNet gigabit Ethernet switches here, so it's not the fastest in the world, but it's something to play with, and it does work. So NAS got i5 4590, 16 gigs of RAM. I use 120 gig Samsung SSD for the boot and the operating system, and then all my other files get put on the ZFS pool there. So that works out really good. For my workstation, some of the key software on there, of course, is the vSphere, which lets me manage the ES6i server itself, and also the vCenter image on the ES6i server. I got my soft phones on there, XLite, Zoiper. Putty is my SSH console tool. I get into the asterisks and the SBC images on the ES6i server with that. so I can kind of, set things up and look at logs and whatnot. So that comes real handy. And of course, Notepad++ for, copy pasting all my logs over and keeping track of my notes, my different commands and stuff that I use to configure the SBC. Also comes in handy when I first installed the Oracle SBC. The image you get, the OVA file you get from Oracle, they say they support the ESXi VMware, right? But when I ran when I tried to deploy it, right, import it in, it had a bunch of XML errors in it. So I just grabbed Notepad, opened it up, and all the errors that it told me for the tags that it didn't like, I just grabbed the whole section from begin tag to end tag and just removed them. I think there was 3 of them altogether, and then it just installed, like a dream. So I went ahead and saved the edited version. So if when we do the reinstall there, we won't have those errors. But I thought I'd give you a heads up on that, that if you're going to the Oracle site and you're going to download that, and you're running it on the ESXi VM server, you might get those errors as well. Now they're supposed to support KVM and OVM, which is Oracle's VM. But I tried the OVM, and that was just a mess. I never even tried to get the SBC installed on it. I was just trying to set up the OVM server and the client piece, and it was a pig, so I ditched that. So on my workstation, I got an i5 6600, 16 gig of DDR4 RAM. I got a 512 gig Samsung SSD, and of course it's just got a Realtek NIC in it, and Windows 10 on there. And I think my NAS got a Qualcomm gigabit NIC on that as well. So I think it's Etheros or Etheros or however you pronounce it, but it works out really good. I got good bandwidth between everything I do. True gig, I can move files off and on at 112 meg, 113 meg. So I'm kind of maxing it out. So everything is connected into. I got 3 TrendNet gigabit switches. So I really don't need 3, but I got 3 so I can kind of break things up. I like to play with pfSense routers and whatnot and build different networks and kind of debug and troubleshoot and build stuff that way. So I got 3 of those. So everything kind of local connected here. All these boxes participate on the 192.168.10.0/24 network inside here. So. Including the desk phone up there too. It's plugged into one of the switches on that network too. So when I come back, we'll go ahead and lay out some IPs and networks, and then we can get into grabbing that OVA off the Oracle site, and show you where that's at, and then we'll go ahead and do the install into the ESXi server, and we'll get into configuring. Okay, so let's go over what I've done here. This is definitely not real world because I am all on the 192.168.10.0/24 network here. I'm in one room in my home lab trying to make this work. Later on in the phase 2, scenario 2, when I set up my interconnect, I'll have a couple routers set up, and I'll get some additional hubs, or maybe I'll just go with a VLAN switch and just do it all that way. Whatever's cheapest, probably. But until then, this is what I have to work with. So we're going to go ahead and make it work. Matter of fact, I already have made it work. So I'm just kind of, duplicating what I've already done on paper here for this video. I didn't use these IP addresses when I originally did this, and I have a little better understanding now. So this makes a lot more sense to me, setting it up, in the video than it did when I initially did it. So I don't know how much you know about the Oracle SBCs. They have a lot of different interfaces in them. I mean, for this scenario, really we're only going to use 3. The WAN COM 0 is going to be our management interface. That's, obviously normally not on the same network as all your, clients and phones and desktops and everything. Quite a security risk. But for this scenario, it is. So I've made that 192.168.10.30 down here, and this will be one of the first addresses that we assign when we boot up the SBC in the guest image, and then we can use PuTTY to come in on this interface and set up all the other interfaces. S0P0 and S0P1. That stands for slot 0, port 0, and slot 0, port 1. Those are media interfaces, meaning that we can do RTP and SIP over them. We can also set these up for SSH access in, for like admins on the 192.168.10. If these were different on different networks, and we wanted administrators to come in instead of having to, drive to the server room or go down in the server room or wherever it may be, and then, plug a laptop into the management side just to do any configs. It doesn't make a lot of sense there. So you can allow access in through your media interfaces as well, which we'll go ahead and do in the setup here. So on the access S0P0, we're going to give that network interface 192.168.10.40. And then on top of that, in that realm, we're going to just call it the access realm when we build this. We're going to define a SIP interface, right? So we can put our media over it. That'll be 192.168.10.45. Those two are kind of like tied together. So our phones and everything are going to register with 192.168.10.45, which actually sits on top of 10.40. On the core side, we're going to give S0P1, put that in the core realm, and we're going to define the interface on that of 192.168.10.50. And again, since it's got to have media going across it to the asterisks, we're going to do a SIP interface on that, and that's going to be 192.168.10.55. So that'll be the IP that that you'll see that communicates with the PBX, the asterisk PBX, when it does its back-to-back. Obviously, you should. If you don't know this much about the Oracle SBC, it gets pretty complex when you start building different networks, and you have multiple realms, and then you start adding policy to the realms and attributes to each policy, and you start getting into header manipulation rules, and it can get pretty daunting on there, which is why I'm building this lab so I can learn all this stuff. I've done some of it. I haven't done any HMRs yet, or really played a lot with multiple realms. I've just done the bare bone policies, so I have a lot to learn on this too. So, but this is how we're going to set it up. So the phone's going to come in on 10.45. That's on top of 10.40. Then it's going to go out on the S0P1 of 10.50. But the media interface is going to be defined as 10.55, so that will be the IP that the public sees out there. So this is how we hide our topology. So they won't see the 50, they won't see the 40, and they won't see the 30, right? Our inside people, guests on the access side, the phones and everything, will see the 45, and the PBX will see the 55, and then our SIP trunk out, depending on how we have our PBX, whether we're using the same interface, a network card that we're using to connect to 10.55, or we're using another one, we could hide a little bit there too. But obviously, the bigger picture is to put an SBC on that interconnect side as well, so we can hide on both ends our SIP switches and the PBXs and stuff using the SBC. So let me go ahead and we'll stop this video, and we'll start another one. I'll take you to the Oracle site, show you where you can get your OVA, and we'll just go from there. So to get the OVA file from Oracle, you need to go to https and then edelivery.oracle.com, and this is their software delivery cloud. It's kind of a cumbersome site and very slow, but you can get the software there. It does require credentials. I think you need some sort of service contract or something with Oracle, and then you need to register with the cloud with them as well. Thanks to my company, I do have access to that. So we click sign on here, and I'll just kind of show you the process here to get this, because it took me a while to figure it out. I downloaded a whole bunch of other stuff before I found the right one. In my contact inside Oracle, he's like, oh yeah, it's up there. I just keep looking for it. So from here you put in your email address, and your password to sign in. You would click sign in, and it would take you to this page here, which I've already signed in. I just didn't want to expose my credentials or my email. So this is the very next page you will see after you sign in. So you can just say accept the agreement. From here, I think you can just leave programs on, and if you type in session BO border controller, it's this one right here, the second one down, not the peering, and not all these other ones, but that one right there. So you click on that. You select your platform, and it's the Acme Packet OS only. It's not the images to put on their hardware, the 3820, the 4500s, etc. So you want to click that one, select, and it's displayed over here, Oracle Communications Session Border Controller, so we can continue. Of course, the platform is Acme Packet OS. Now it's going to, in its sweet little Oracle time, here we go. This is the one we want, was right there, and it's already checked. There's one alternate release in there, 7.2. It doesn't even have an OVA. It's just a GZ file or something like that that you can load on your hardware, or maybe even downgrade the OVA to 7.2. I'm not sure. I haven't tried that. But so we'll just leave the 7.2.9 selected. Say continue. You have to agree to the terms. And then the one you want is the Vmware image. It's 91.8 meg. It's in a contained zip file. That's definitely the one you want. The OVM I haven't played with. The KVM I haven't played with as well. This is the one for the ESXi. So you just download that. It's in a zip file. Once you have the zip file, you just uncompress it. Close this. And what you get is this file here, the image VM OVA. This is my mod one here. So what I'll do is we'll go ahead and try to load this one, and I'll show you what happens. It spits out one of those XML errors. Just to give you a heads up, I'm not going to go in and re-edit all the XML stuff, but you can if you just right-click and say Edit with Notepad. You come up here, and whatever tag it gives you, just grab from the opening to the closing and get rid of it. So a virtual system collection, if it doesn't like this one here, right, or maybe just the assembly one inside there, you can grab that one. And the affinity section, I think this is one of them it didn't like, and you can just delete it. And then when you're done, you'll save it, go back in and run it, it'll give you another one. I think there's 3 of them altogether that this happens on. Just get rid of those, and then after the third one, I think it is, it should run fine for you. But for now, we'll just load my my modded one here that's already got the edits in it. So by this time, you should have your ESXi server up and running. You should have a vSphere installed on your PC, connected into the ESXi. Then you need to download the Vcenter appliance if you're going to do it like me, and then you need to use install your image, deploy an OVF template with your vSphere connected into your ESXi. You install the VMware Vcenter appliance. From there, then you can log into your Vcenter appliance. You can log into your Vcenter appliance here. I'll just show you real quick. So we can pull this up. So use vSphere, and I have a couple different ones here, right? So .90 will log me directly into my ESXi server. 105 will log me into the Vcenter server, which I have my ESXi server tied into that. So that's why I have that data center, and I can manage multiple servers in the tree. Let me close that. So I could have multiple ESXi servers listed down here, and then under each server I could have resource pools, and then also the image itself in here, which this is the SBC that I've already put on here and installed and configured and got working. I've got some other images too, which aren't part of that resource pool. That's the only one that's in part of that pool. And that was an Oracle built thing from their OVA file in there. So let's go ahead and come up to here, and we'll say deploy an OVF template. Browse. We'll grab the modded one. Open. And tells us what it is. We're pretty good. It needs 40 gig of space. Okay. We're going to do a new data center, so let's just call this SBC 2. And we'll put it in that data center there. On that server, I mean, in the data center. All right, and we're going to do a resource pool. We're fine there. And let's go ahead, since I don't have any room on my SSD anymore, I'm going to go ahead and throw it on other. I know there's plenty of space there. I've only got 19 gig provisioned on that one right now, so I got plenty of space. So let's go next. Next. And here's all your network interfaces in here. You can see there's quite a few, right? So you got 3 WAN comms and 4 media in your spare. So altogether, there's 8 interfaces that appear in your virtual SBC in here. So, and you can't edit any of these. They're all locked in. So you just go ahead and say next. And we won't power on after deployment. I'll show you what I had to do here. We'll go finish. All right, and that finished up for us. So now under my resource pool SBC2, we have a brand new image which has never been turned on. So pretty cool. So we'll go to, let's go ahead and right click on this and go to edit settings on the image itself. And these controllers in here, I'm just going to make sure that they're all powered on, just so they're all visible to us. Even though we won't use them, it's still nice to have. So I honestly don't know which ones map to SPZ or S0P0 and S0P1, and which one's a WAN com. So I just turn them all on, and then I can make my decision. All the other settings are set by Oracle, for optimal performance, 4 gig of RAM, 4 CPUs, etc. So let's go ahead and say OK. And then we'll power on from the resource pool. Is how it likes to be done. And then we can also open up a console at the same time while that's powering on, and we can take a look at it. There you go. Be a good time to go get a cup of coffee if you need to, huh? I actually forgot what I was going to name that interface. So let me go back over here to my diagrams here, IP diagram. There we go. You open this up. So we're going to call it 10.30. That's what I thought. Okay. Here we go. So the password is going to be the default Acme, right? And then you want to get into enable mode. And that password is going to be their default packet, right? So Oracle's still using the old Acme Packet stuff. And you see we got some no valid licenses in here, so we'll get rid of those here in a minute. We don't need a license key for this. These VM images will self-license themselves, and they don't even expire, so That's really cool. Oh, one more thing I need to really make clear. When you set up your ESXi and your vSphere and your vCenter and everything, do not, I don't have the money to buy all this stuff, right? So I use the free vSphere on the free ESXi. Well, vCenter won't install on a free license. It knows, that it's just a 5-user freebie and it won't install. So I had to uninstall everything, reinstall everything, right? The ESXi server and the vSphere, not using a serial key, and running it in eval mode. Then vCenter will install on an eval. So I have everything running in eval mode, right? So I got 45, 50 days left or something like that on my eval. So when all this thing comes crashing down, hey, I'm just going to have to rebuild it all from scratch and start over, and I can run it all back into eval mode again. So, not a big deal. But anyway, I just thought I'd let you know, do not put that free 5-user license in your vSphere when you install that, because then you won't be able to get vCenter on there. So the first thing we need to do is set that WAMCOM interface, right, to 10.30. So we want to go into Configure Terminal, and then we want to go into the boot parameters. So boot param. And as you go through each line, so we'll leave the image the same. IP address, we need that. So we can go ahead and put our IP address in, 192.168.10.30, right? Yeah. So let's do that. We don't have a VLAN set up here. My net mask. Put that in. Gateway is my gateway. That was on that slide that I showed you there. 192.168.1. No IP6, no gateway there. We don't need that. We really don't need this, but I just put admin. Oops. Admin in for grins. And I think we just go through everything else, right? Yep. We're good there. So let's do an exit. And then we're back at the config pound prompt. We can do a save. It's already saved. So let's go ahead and reboot. Yes. And we should ping, what am I at here? -T. We should see this come online here in a minute. I hope so anyway. It worked in rehearsal. Here it goes. So now we got our WAMCOM management interface up. So now we don't have to use this god-awful VM console anymore. So we want to get out of that as soon as possible, right? Let's wait for that to start up. Here we go. Set the password prompt. So let's open up. Looks like I'm in my other SBC. Sorry about that. So we'll do 192.168.10.30. I'm blind, so I need big text. And let's say open. Oh no, what happened there? I think I put it in wrong. 30. Oh, well, let me pause this and I'll be right back. Well, that was interesting. I wound up just rebooting the virtual SBC, and I was able to get right into it. So, matter of fact, I haven't even logged into it yet, but at least the prompt came up. So let's go ahead and do that now. I made an entry in here and saved my ginormous text as well. So that just makes it easier for me. And we'll just open that up to 192.168.10.30. I did agree to the SSH key, and that's as far as I got. So let's go ahead and log in. And the default is admin. And then since we don't have enabled on automatically, we have to go in as a regular user. So the first password is going to be Acme. Oh, I'm sorry. When you're SSH'd in, it takes you right to the pound prompt. So the password is packet. There you go. So just P-A-C-K-E-T, all lowercase. So admin and packet. So now we're in through SSH on our WANCOM port. So that makes it pretty nice. So let's go ahead and CompT. Let's go ahead and do our boot param. And you can press tab. If you put in the first few characters in there, you can press tab, and it'll give you the options in there. But if I just put B, there's nothing else in there. What else is in here? There's SC, right? So if I go SC, there's two. There's security and session, and I press tab. It'll give me both of those in there, so I can kind of, continue on. So I know this is going to give me session router, so I could go in that way. So the tab key is a pretty cool thing there. So you just go boot, and there's my address. There's my net mask. Gateway's right. We're all good there. Okay. So let's go ahead and try to get this thing licensed, right? So I think it's system, and then maybe it's back one more. Boy, that's why I like to play around here, huh? There it is. It's all the way back at the pound prompt. So we go setup, and again we just press tab. So the first thing we want to do is set up our product, and it's uninitialized, right? So let's go 1. We want session border controller, so we'll do 1. Then we'll do save. Still no licenses, that's fine. We do setup, and then we want to do entitlements, and then we want to do a session capacity is 1. We'll just put in like 250, right? We'll do save. Save succeeded. Now we don't have any more licensing issues in here. So that's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and save our config, and let's activate it. And we're good to go. We are ready to start configuring and using this. I'm going to go ahead and end this video. This will be kind of part 1. Part 2, we'll be coming back and focusing completely on the SBC. We're going to go ahead and set up all, the real general stuff, the name and location. We'll set up the NTP, all that good stuff. Then we'll dive in and work on our network interfaces, work on our SIP interfaces, work on our policies, our realms, get all that stuff done. We'll have to do a access in there as well to get to our PBX. So we have a lot of stuff to do. Thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing you on part 2.